What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Lock and Cash podcast. We are back at it this weekend, even though we are unfortunately not in the same place. Bruce actually on some business travel. Fun fact, Bruce. Let's actually share with everyone a fun fact that Lock and Cash is not the only business that Bruce has helped build from the ground up. So this man is experienced in the entrepreneur game, and he is on a business trip here out of the country. So, but still made time for you guys because you guys need somebody to come on here today and give you guys some MMA picks for this weekend. After a pretty good first weekend of the year, by the way, last week picked up, I think, right around 2 units it was. So on a light card.
Listen, they didn't want us to win bigger than we did.
Right.
Because they canceled Mateusz Nicolau versus Minel Kopp.
Yep.
They knew. They watched the podcast and they were like, we got to scratch this fight.
Yeah.
We got to this one. We messed up, guys.
Yeah.
We messed up. Lock and Cash was onto us. So we had to cut that one, but we did get, you know what? And I'm upset at you.
What did I do?
I'm upset at you because we called exactly how that fight was going to go.
Oh, yes. And I promised I would clip it.
You didn't put the clip on TikTok. So for new viewers, for the fight last week, which was,
it was Hawes and who was, I forgot the other.
It was Hawes and Bruno Ferreira. Not only did we tell you guys what was going to happen, I demonstrated on the podcast how it was going to happen in the exact order of events it was going to happen in.
Yep.
And I felt like a Nostradamus, and you didn't put it up. So
you know what?
I'm upset.
On this episode, we're going to put a little window right here, somewhere here, and we're going to show as you're reminiscing right now. We're going to put the clip up of you doing the motion and everything. But yeah, that was a nice hit. That was a 2-unit play on Ferreira, so that was a pretty good one. And actually, I think you guys haven't missed a 2-unit play in a while.
And we got another one this weekend.
And yeah, exactly. It's already been sent out. Sent that one this weekend. If you're a sub, maybe we'll talk about that later on. And then and then wild card weekend, we ended up pretty good, 6-1. Our one loss was the team that we both really liked was the Browns, who completely just got destroyed. That was the one loss. I mean, we'll take one loss for 6 wins, but they got destroyed in that game.
And I talked so much shit about a Browns Super Bowl. It's like it was like the karma pie cooking in the oven I've been talking 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I've been talking 2 weeks about a Browns Super Bowl.
That was the highlight of last week's episode. Was like, what if we get Flacco, Baker? It was like, first round, forget it.
Listen, this is why you're an expert in the NFL. I'm an expert in MMA.
There you go. It works out.
That's why
I really liked them too. And they just, I don't know. I mean, I knew their defensive metrics were weaker on the road, but they had nothing. They had nothing in that game for that Houston offense. So
it's the ascension of Stroud.
Yeah. I mean, and we'll see if it can carry over. We'll start with that game. So basically what we're going to do, guys, for this episode, we're going to run through each game. I have some key trends on each game that we'll discuss that I think are relevant. Bruce and I will give you guys our thoughts and our leans on how we're going to play out. And then we'll have some UFC picks at the end as well. So we'll actually start off with Stroud. Headed to Baltimore. So the Texans-Ravens, this line is at 9.5. The first thing that I saw, Bruce, I don't know about you, or the first thing I thought of when I saw the line, I thought back to week 1 because it's funny. Like once the offseason hits, you kind of forget of like who played who, what week and everything. You just kind of like looking forward to next week. But like when you're in it, you remember like everything. So like the first thing was like, oh, they played week 1. And I remembered because we bet the under. See, this is all I remember. We bet the under, and I remember the line was 9.5, and I was playing the system of if the line's 9.5 or more, you take the under. This is how I remember.
Right.
So I'm like, how is the spread the same now after how much better Houston's got? To me, it doesn't make. I don't know about your first thoughts, but my initial thoughts are like, what? How is the spread the same that it is now as it was in week 1?
How much better has Houston got? But how much better have the Ravens been than our expectations since week 1?
Yeah,
I don't know. Did you have Ravens being like the best team in the AFC?
No, because we took under their win total for this season, and they
I know,
got absolutely
exactly.
destroyed. So
Yeah, you literally went under the win total, right?
I
So
was looking
like,
at their schedule, and I was like, I can't find 11 wins here. Well, they found, I think, 13. What,
well,
13 wins?
yeah. So they've both overperformed
Yeah.
our expectations for him this year. So maybe it is. Maybe they both blew us away
Yeah.
in different ways.
But I feel like we
But
expect Baltimore to be here in some sense, compete for the division, be in the
mhm,
playoffs. I don't think anybody thought the Texans were a playoff team, and now a team that can win a playoff game. They won their
yep.
division, they won a playoff game. I mean, this has been a wildly successful season. So to me, it's like if that number was that in game one of Stroud, of CJ D'Amico, that whole project, and now
Mhm.
I mean, it's just, and their defense is also way better than people expected, and they're really good against the rush
Two,
too, which is going to be important in
two,
the game. You know,
yeah, two pick six
yeah,
against the Browns. Like,
yeah,
so one of the major reasons why they pulled away and sealed that game were
exactly,
those defensive plays. So
yeah,
even though CJ Stroud was immaculate, but like
yep,
those two pick sixes were the thing
yeah,
that put the nail in the coffin there. So
yeah. And I did want to bring up a couple of key trends about this game specifically because there's honestly conflicting data. You can kind of go either way with this. So I wanted to get your thoughts on it, and I'll give my thoughts on it. But
yeah.
um, as good as their season has been, for them to be competitive or to win this game, the Texans, they got to make history again because you have a rookie QB, right? CJ Stroud's the only rookie left in the playoffs. And before, actually, including his win last week, rookie quarterbacks were just 4-11 straight up in the last 15 starts, right? But on top of that, this is only the fourth time in this game in NFL history that a rookie quarterback is going to be playing the number one defense in the playoffs. So you've had rookies make runs where maybe they catch a team that's a little bit sleepy, or they catch a team that they have a matchup advantage against. But this is only the fourth time that a rookie's going up against the legit per metric number one rated defense in the league, and the previous three are 0-3 straight up and against the spread. So this will have to be another spot where you make history to become the first rookie to be able to pull it off if you can. So that's kind of a notch against Houston, but then a notch for Houston is how Lamar Jackson has been covering these big point spreads. Like the big thing that you heard all week and that you'll hear going into the game tomorrow is that Lamar is great when he's a dog, but he's not going to be able to cover his big. And also his playoff history is a little bit questionable. To me, I think the playoff history is, I don't know, it's a little bit fluky to me. I think this team he's never had a team this loaded. I think they're in pretty good shape. I don't think this is going to be like a Lamar flat game, if anything. But the spread, the spread point, I could legitimately see as something to be concerned about because I could easily see this game being a 7 or 8 point win for the Ravens, and not covering this number. And if this gets to 10, then you even have a smaller chance. And like these numbers are often inflated for these teams coming out of the bye. It's the old rest versus rust argument. So, but and then at the same time, so that's kind of like a notch for the Texans. Also, another thing to consider that road teams who missed the playoffs in the previous year are 68% against the spread. That's pretty strong. The record is 27-13. So there's a bunch of different ways you can look at this. For me, I think the number is just too high. You look at the 1 seed trends as well, which we'll talk about for the Niners game. The 1 seed trends are pretty poor too, coming out of the bye week. And then add on to the fact that really, if you really think about it, Baltimore had that Monday night game against the Niners where they crushed them, right? Then they played the Dolphins. It was a laugher. And then they rested against the Steelers. So I could argue they haven't played a real game in 3 weeks, not a one bye week, because that Miami game was over at halftime, and the Steelers game they rested. So kind of a tricky spot. I think I could see Houston, even if they're down late by 2 touchdowns, maybe a backdoor in this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I think look for the back door. I really do think that the Ravens sort of bring the Texans back down to earth. We have to remember, like the Texans, I won't say they snuck into the playoffs because they earned it over the Colts, but like their playoff percentage, and I had them in the playoff machine episode, but like they weren't like a shoo-in for the playoffs.
The Jaguars choked,
right, and they lost some games that they probably should have won over the year, right? So I think they comes back down to earth. I would look either I think you're either playing for the back door. If you're taking that 9.5, if you're taking the 9.5, you're playing for the back door.
Yeah.
I think the Ravens are going to show up in this game in a way where I think you're going to see Stroud come back down to earth a bit. And you're going to see how good that Ravens team is across the board. They're like one of the most complete defenses.
They are.
Like everywhere. Like they don't have holes in that defense unless somebody goes down in this game.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So like that's honestly I'll be pleasantly surprised if they make it a game, if the Texans make it a game.
Yeah.
But Stroud's been surprising me all season. True. And he also surprised me and ruined my Browns Super Bowl. So like this can happen again, right? But I'm not in. I can't be in by the numbers you gave on rookie quarterbacks in the playoffs and the Ravens defense. Can't be in on the Texans.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with you that if you take this, you're playing for the back door. Like I would be surprised if this is like 20-20 with like 6 minutes left, and you're like, oh, I got a sweat-free cover. Like I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be late, maybe garbage time. I think the outright win here is super, super unlikely. Maybe even less than the odds suggest. Like there might even be value on Ravens money line, which is stupid to say. But I think it's a very unlikely that the outright win happens. But for me, my not early leans tomorrow, but it'll be to the Texans plus 9.5. I would also take a look at the under. I think the under could be a play. Maybe the Ravens come out a little bit rusty with all that time off. Houston's good against the rush, like I said. So, maybe if they could force them into some longer passing downs, we'll see what happens. I mean, Lamar has been insane on those downs this year, but we'll see what happens. But to the under, and I would lean Texans.
I might put a Ravens money line in a pocket change parlay.
I don't
know.
know damn well every single person on earth tomorrow is going to have Niners Ravens moneyline parlay, which is still like what is it? It's still like -3. It's going to be a lot still. It's going to be super juicy still, even if you put them to because they're such big favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that kind of takes us to that Niners game. So the Packers at Niners, man. Again, same spread. Green Bay plus 9.5.
By the way, plus 9, same spread. Jordan Love and Stroud had nearly identical stats.
I saw
last week too.
Crazy.
So I'm interested in your take in this game.
Yeah.
Compared to the Baltimore game, because you're playing two elite defenses, the number 1 seeds, both guys in their first start in the playoffs had identical stats last week.
Yeah.
Are you capping this game the same, or are there different things about this game that flip your pick on its head?
Yeah, for sure. I like the favorite in this game, not unlike the other game, and the reason is is kind of what you said. It's a different matchup. So here's my thought process on this, and I mentioned this in another video, but like last week when we took the Packers plus 7, my thought was they have a clear advantage. Right, offensively, because I thought the Cowboys defense is a little bit overrated. And on the other side, the Green Bay defense is really bad against the rush, like bottom 5 in the league in the metrics. But who are the Cowboys running the ball with? They don't have a great running game with Tony Pollard. They've struggled to get that going all year long. So
who knew?
I know, right? They rely so heavily on the pass that I felt like they weren't going to be able to exploit the weakness of the Green Bay defense. Now, I honestly did not think they were going to win the game outright, but I thought that would be enough to keep them in it. They end up blowing them out. But this week, you have a massive advantage if you're San Francisco on the ground. Like McCaffrey should have a huge game. And when you can control clock like that and bury another team on the ground, it's super, super dangerous. And I think, the Jordan Love is, I think there's no question he's legit. He played really, really well. But outdoors on the road against, probably either the first or the second, per the metrics will tell you the second best defense. But man, it's going to be much, much tougher, I think. And by the way, the LaFleur versus McCarthy, I thought was a notch for Green Bay. Not so much this week. Shanahan is up to the task. This is not going to be a spot where you come in on the road and you outcoach them. And then to me, they have great numbers coming off of extended rest. I think that if you had a pick of which game bucks the 1 seed trends, I think it's this game. I think this game's more likely to be a blowout than the other game. in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think I could see that defense having success. Jordan Love's been good against pressure, but I could see them rattling him a little bit. And I could see on the other end, though, mainly if they can run the ball well, Green Bay has because the Texans defense it ranks a lot higher, grades out a lot higher than the Green Bay defense. If Green Bay's defense is getting gashed, you can now play this game where you're keeping that offense on the sideline with these 6-7 minute drives, those classic Shanahan drives, and they end in touchdowns. That's going to be demoralizing. So I could see this one ending in a blowout versus the other one, maybe the back door being open. So that's kind of my take on this one. I think I would lean to the Niners minus the 9.5.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, a healthy Niners team is probably one of the most dangerous, complete offenses in the playoffs. And for everybody that says, Brock Purdy got exposed, he did in a few games, but overall in the season, he was elite when all of his weapons were on the field.
Nice.
If you look at his splits when you have McCaffrey, Ayuk, and Debo on the field and Kittle, like they're ridiculous,
insane.
And I dropped them in fantasy.
It always goes back to fantasy. Yeah,
you guys just wait. You guys just wait until fantasy comes around next season. We're gonna have some content for you guys.
We are. We're gonna dive in. But I think
it's a blowout, dude.
Yeah, I think it's tough because everyone's gonna want to go. Everyone's gonna want to bet the trendy dogs, and honestly, you can call it square, but this has been the year of the square in the NFL. Like all the public square plays have been doing great, so I get wanting to go that route. For me, I like it with Houston. I don't like it. I don't like it with this game. And it's just defense. It's just the defense I think is going to get exposed, big time.
I agree,
big time. And Dallas could not take advantage of it last week. So, So that's my thoughts on that. But all right, let's switch over. Let's go Tampa, Detroit now. This to me, I don't know about you. I know the last game, everyone's going to Baker, exactly right. I know the last game on Sunday night, everyone's going to be the most amped for, but I actually think this could be like the sneaky best game of the weekend with Tampa Detroit, because I love this matchup on paper, like in my head, how I think the game script is going to play out. I think this could be like a classic because you got,
Can I just say, Baker Mayfield, there was a picture online. Maybe we can put it somewhere. You had Baker Mayfield in a 3-point stance, redshirted on the Rams, like scout team defense.
I saw. Yeah, crazy.
What a wild turn.
Honestly, if DeMar Hamlin didn't die on the field, he's your comeback player of the year, I think, now at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, it doesn't include. Yeah. Oh, it only includes regular season, right? It doesn't include. So it might have been. Well, I guess.
No, he still had a regular season that was way above and beyond everybody's expectations.
That's true.
Big up for DeMar Hamlin coming back from that, but when it comes to football, like playing football, Baker Mayfield.
Oh, he was amazing.
He was amazing, and everybody, people are saying he's what we all wanted Johnny Manziel to be.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's like a great story because like it's at first he was kind of like you rooted for him to fail, kind of like a douchey, but like he's not the same person anymore, and he's kind of easy to root for now, kind of like liking the Baker story now. So but this is definitely going to be much tougher than being at home against the Eagles, who. Listen, the Eagles were just that game was over like before it started. Honestly,
I know. Honestly, we called it. We were like, "Yo, they're broken.
They're defeated." They're broken. You can sometimes tell. Like there's like like maybe newer sports bettors might have saw that as like a buy low spot. But there's like a little nuance in when you're trying to identify buy low versus like a team that's broken. Like there's not always a buy low opportunity on a team that's just like really like locker room issues, coaching issues, like so anyway, but this is going to be a bigger challenge now going into Detroit, where Goff is really good at home and indoors. Now, last week though, one of the things that concerned me if I'm a Lions fan or if I'm going to try to bet the Lions in this game is like they let the Rams hang around that game the entire game to the last drive of the game when they had chances to put them away. They were up. I think it was 21-7. They had chances to ice that game, and they did not. 3 points in the second half is not going to cut it. I don't think this weekend. There's only so much you can rely on your defense to do. But the interesting thing to me is like how both of these teams are excellent at defending the rush. They're both good in the trenches. And if I'm Tampa Bay, I don't like you can't get into a shootout with these guys, right? I know they put up 32 on the Eagles. Are defense is soft, washed. Forget about it. This is not you're not going to put up 30 in this game. So if I'm Tampa Bay, this is why I think this is fascinating. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to try to make this game as ugly and as dirty as I possibly can. Like I'm gonna force the rush. I'm gonna stack the box and force them or try to stop their rush. Just try to make the game slow, drag it out. Like a very physical, which is you saw how they just basically bullied the Eagles last week. They're not the fastest defense, they're not the youngest defense, but they can play very physical and get tough with you. I think that's their path to success. If they keep this like a low scoring game where they can kind of like impose their bully, kind of like bully ball on Detroit. Now, Detroit's really is good at that too. They're very good at stopping the rush, which is why I think this could be like a really good back and forth game. So, but because of everything I just said, I think this is a sneaky underplay. You know, we talk about the indoor lines being a little bit inflated. This is, I think, at 49. Yeah. I would play this under if it was me. I would look to play. High. And I like and in terms of the side, I like Tampa if I can get 7 here. Now I know this line opened at 6. And in my early leans video, I mentioned that if it would drop down, maybe I'll look at Detroit. But it's actually gone up 6.5. If this gets to 7, to me that's a fire. I'll take the full touchdown with the Bucks, and I'll hope that they can keep it close. But like I said, I think this so the first 2 games are big favorites. You got the big Sunday night banger with the Chiefs and the Bills. I think this could be like a very close competitive game where 7 is just. I think 7's too much, or 6.5 is too much here.
Yeah, I agree. Goff has been great, but he against good defenses. He's shown inconsistency over the season. He had a couple of really big sinkers. I think indoor, obviously, Goff is, I think on our notepad, we have these 29-5 against the spread. Crazy. Indoors over the last 3 years. So he, obviously he's excellent indoors. And that's a stat and that's an angle that we really love to take, both in fantasy and in betting with Goff, is like making sure that you're getting him indoors. I think last week, there's a little intangible with Stafford of like all the years that he's played in Detroit and played in that stadium where I think there's just a little bit of an intangible there that we can't quite quantify on why they were able to hang around there and produce points. But I like the under here. Yeah. I think it'll be back and forth. Even if it's not back and forth, I think that becomes like the wheels fall off for Baker. And they don't produce. Yeah. They're not going to produce a ton of points if the wheels fall off for Baker.
Right.
So, 49 is high. I would probably
agreed. Yeah. And if this bumps up, I think I had in my notes here 50. It's actually 49 or more. It was a typo, but the totals of 49 or higher the last 2 years in the NFL, there's 69% to the under. So we always talk about how these ebbs and flows in the market, like the last few years have been strong to the under. And I was saying that when these totals start to drop, look for the over, start hitting again. But this is one of those unique high totals that you have after seeing a round last
with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the keys, one of the things I want to point out is after seeing the round last week, like it's no surprise to me, like the Niners game has a total of 50 and a half. This is at 49. After last week, a couple of teams put up 40 and 30, right? The Cowboys scored 30 plus. Right. The Packers scored 40 plus. The Texans scored 40 plus. The Bucks scored 30 plus. Yeah. And now suddenly these totals are all bumped up a few points. Is it really justified? I would say no. I think the under might be the strongest play in this game. Tampa and the dog and the under for me in this one. Especially if this gets to 7.
Yeah, maybe put my tinfoil hat on for a second. Maybe the NFL sent a little message down to the ref saying, we need scoring earlier in these playoffs. We need higher touchdown totals to get these people entertained. And then, like, how am I supposed to pull ratings with Houston?
Houston, Cleveland.
Juice them. Houston, Cleveland, juice it.
We need action, baby. Yeah, totally.
Nobody wants to see Joe Flacco but Bruce. Juice the points.
Yeah, exactly. They had to get him out. Now in hindsight, they had to get Flacco out. That was it.
Yep. Tinfoil hat on. They didn't want him. He's too boring.
Oh man. All right, last
Okay,
game.
let's move on.
This is the game of the week, though. If we're being honest, Chiefs Bills.
No copyright.
And listen, I'm going to sound like a broken record. You know where I'm going with this. Now, I would like to get your take on it. Everyone who's watching,
Who's turn picked, Jeff?
everyone who's watching and who's watched recently knows that I love. We have right now. We have pending. So we cashed AFC East on the Bills when they were like plus money after the season started.
Mm-hmm.
So we got
Yep.
that. Now I'm waiting on AFC Bills and Bills AFC and Bills Super Bowl is what I'm waiting on. All right. So we have a couple other futures out there pending as well, but those are the two that I'm interested in for this game, obviously. But for me, opened up -2, shot up to 3, no surprise. As soon as this hit 3, got bought back down. That's the market telling you guys, if you're not familiar with like how the market, that's the market telling you like they are not going to allow Patrick Mahomes to be more than a 3-point dog. Like anything, Mahomes with a field goal for market bettors or sharp bettors out there, that's going to be a fire, an auto fire. He's got amazing stats, right? When the spread's -3 or less, so basically if he's a small favorite or if he's a dog, he's 21-8 against the spread. Totally get it. But for me, going back to last week, they roughed up the Dolphins in a game that I didn't expect the Dolphins to win. They were badly hurt on defense, and they play terribly outdoors in the cold. We know the story about it, that whole thing.
Right.
So the Chiefs just bullied them up. But when I dig into the numbers, I don't see a Chiefs offense that was fixed. I just see it was a horrible matchup that they got to exploit a little bit. But 6 red zone trips, they came out with 2 touchdowns and 4 field goals. That's not going to win the game against Buffalo on the road. You cannot kick field goals in a game like this. They're going to have to finish it off. This is also the first ever career road playoff game for Pat Mahomes, unless you count the Super Bowl that he lost in. It was against Tampa in Tampa, but it's technically considered a neutral field. But they lost that game. Buffalo's now 6 in a row. They've won 6 in a row. One of the things that I dug up as home favorites, 35-8 in the last 42 games as home favorites. There's a dominant home team that's pretty I think is the much better offense, but they do have some defensive injuries that I'll be a little bit concerned about. Here's the last thing I'll say before you give your point on this. The last 5 times these teams have played, it's been in Kansas City. All right, and the last 2 of them, the Bills have won. Will come into Wednesday 1 games. This is the first time in a long time that the Bills get a divisional home playoff game where they can, they get to welcome in the Chiefs. And in those last 5 games against Kansas City, Josh Allen, 15 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He plays well against this team. They don't always win, but he plays well, and he plays well against his defense. So I like the Bills if it stays under 3. Anything under 3, I'm firing on this game. -2.5, -2. Honestly, even at 3, but I don't want the push. I don't want the increased chance of a push. But 2.5 for me is all systems go on Buffalo.
Yeah, and I agree with you here. And the reason why I agree with you here is the weapons that Patrick Mahomes has this year.
Yeah.
Is just not the same.
It's not good
as prior years. Now, he's excellent.
Yeah.
But you need playmakers to come up with big plays in big spots.
Yeah.
And, we have some of the rookies over there in Kansas City starting to pop off a little bit and show that they have potential. But, man, you need an ascension to be able to get playmakers to make those huge plays in big moments in the playoffs. And I don't think he has them. And I think one of those guys are going to fail him tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow, but I don't know what day it is anymore. But this weekend in like a big way. And when it comes to coaching, I'm always taking the Chiefs in this matchup.
Yeah, I agree.
Given McDermott's past history of getting over the hump, but
I agree with that.
I agree with you. I think it's Bills, and it's one of the it's one of the first times that I'm going to agree with you on the Bills Buffalo, making it to the Super Bowl, because I think their path is clearing up.
Yeah.
I think we're headed towards Baltimore and Buffalo.
Oh man, what a matchup!
That's going to be a crazy game. That's going to be a crazy game.
Listen, I don't know. Odds makers can get weird sometimes with opening lines. But if you're going to give me the field goal with that one, I'll take. It's Baltimore. Baltimore's going to be favored, so at home. So if you give me the field goal though, right, I'm taking it. If it's +2, I can understand that the 2.5. But if I get Bills 3.5, I'm taking it. That's it. I just think they're uniquely set up this year, like in a year where they were sick. Remember, they were 6-6, kind of written off.
Mm-hmm.
They had it was like a 50-50 whether they were going to make the playoffs. Now they're in it. Yep. I look for teams that struggle. I look for teams that have high potential, right? High expectations, but struggle mid-year and then start to peak towards the end of the year. They fit the profile for this year. So we'll see if they can actually come through, though. But for me, it's Bills at the current line of -2.5 to punch their ticket to the AFC Championship.
I take that too.
Yeah,
I'm hopping over. I'm hopping over on your bandwagon.
I like it. All right, cool. So we have this is a pay-per-view weekend. That's right. UFC 296, right?
Yes.
So Duplessis versus Strickland. I know you got some plays for us on this, so why don't we get into that real quick before we wrap up?
Duplessis versus Sean Strickland, the championship fight that nobody asked for
right.
and nobody wanted. I'm not going to talk about it.
I saw they kind of made up. Didn't they make up recently? I saw they're talking now or something.
Yeah, but it's to sell a fight. I'm pretty sure that fight in the crowd was like a WWE like made up thing.
Oh, for sure.
Like Sean Strickland is a professional MMA fighter, and he was hitting Drickus like, like his elbow was like a ball joint. So like I don't believe any of that. But and Sean Strickland and Drickus are company men. They get it done for the UFC. So I would not be surprised if that was not so much of a real fight. But they are going to really fight in this main event. I'm not going to talk about the main event because I have two fights. One, I got a dog coming in with a system, and then I got a favorite that may be a parlay piece for you by the time you watch this. We gave it to you earlier in the week, where you can bet it straight. It's been climbing. Yeah. It should be climbing. It should be climbing higher than it is right now, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But it's not because you guys aren't sharp and it's in Canada. So let's dive into it. The first one is your juiced straight or your parlay piece this weekend. It is Chris Curtis versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Chris Curtis line -185 right now. Some books have him between -190 and -200. He popped up yesterday. I think that line's come down a bit.
Yeah.
We gave it to you guys at like -165 when it was out.
Something like that.
But man, is this a slam dunk. And I will eat my shorts on the next podcast. And I know usually when this happens, like something bad happens. But man, so let me set the stage for you guys. We're in Canada. Chris Curtis is in the camp of Sean Strickland. They need to get him a fight. They need to get him a Canadian middleweight to sell this Canadian crowd. And who do they pick? The only active Canadian middleweight in the division, Marc-Andre Barriault. He sounds Canadian. He fights Canadian. Goes forward. He puts pressure on you. He's a tough guy with a great cardio, right? What does Chris Curtis do the best? He is a powerful counterpuncher, and he rips to the body and takes away that cardio. Marc-Andre has a high guard because he has a good tank, and he takes it on the guard and moves forward. He's not going to be able to do that to Chris Curtis. We cap Chris Curtis, one of the best fighters in we cap Chris Curtis like probably the best out of all the fighters in the UFC. We know when he's going to win. We know he's going to lose. He excels against people who pressure forward and won't get into a brawl with them because his boxing is excellent. He has incredible power in his hands, and he rips to the body.
Yeah.
So I'm saying this is a slam dunk. This is probably going to be a 2-unit play on our card if we go straight. If not, he's going to be in a parlay piece if it gets too high by the weekend. I already put my bet on him on Monday as soon as I saw the line. One may feel a little scary to you.
Yeah.
Because Chris Curtis has low volume in round one. He's figuring out the distance. He's figuring out, his counter punching. is probably going to look like Marc Andre is winning round 1, and I'm going to look like an idiot. But round 2 and 3, he is going to open up to the body and slip these punches. And I think Marc Andre, he's only been knocked out once in the UFC. He has a really good chin, but there's a chance here that he gets put out. The only slight red flag that I would put on this for Marc Andre is he puts a lot of volume out there. So if Chris Curtis does shell up for too long and he drops two rounds, we could see a Marc Andre decision. So if you're out there in the great state of Canada, which I am right now, I'm probably cursing the ground that I'm walking on right now. But if you want to do a Marc Andre play, the decision prop is probably going to be pretty juiced, and you might see some value there. But man, it's Chris Curtis. Like it's a Chris Curtis. I would go Chris Curtis money line. If it gets too high, put it in a parlay.
Yeah,
put it with Baltimore, and then you'll have a good time there.
That's pretty good, actually. Yeah, or the Ravens. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and then
so
like what you're describing makes sense though, because we talked, I think, in a previous episode, I forget which one it was, but about how when fighters are in the main event, they're guys in their camp fight, and they've got to find a matchup somewhere, right? Like you just can't, so it just makes total sense. A Canadian and then in the division, it kind of lines up well, and it ends up being a huge mismatch, but they make the fight happen, and they get the names on the cars. So.
Right. Yeah. Marc Andre is like, of course I want to fight in Canada.
Exactly.
But man, lamb to the slaughter here, guys. Yeah. Like, this is going to be a rough one when it comes style.
We like those.
Cool.
We like those when you find
Chris
Curtis, baby.
Yes. So, got Chris Curtis there. Now we're going to move on to Sean Woodson versus Charles Jourdain. Again, American versus Canadian. This is a system play. This is not an anti-Canadian play here. Mm-hmm. This one, we got Sean Woodson at plus 170 versus Charles Jourdain at minus 205. Both guys, primarily strikers. Charles Jourdain has a pretty good ground game. We saw him submit Ricardo Ramos early in that fight last time. Didn't even really get going. Got him at a guillotine, choked him out. Surprising to us, as it is probably to a bunch of people, that he was able to choke out Ricardo Ramos so fast. But the system here is in the reach. We have two primary strikers. Charles Jourdain, 69-inch reach. Sean Woodson, 78.
That's huge. That's a big advantage. Yeah.
That's almost another arm.
Yeah.
That's and when we've seen two primary strikers in these fights with a reach advantage of 7 to 9 inches, those fights clearly go to the guy with the longer reach over 60-65% of the time, right? So what I'm thinking here is we're going to get a stand-up fight. We're going to get Sean Woodson really taking advantage of his reach. And I think there's a lot of value on Sean Woodson here based on that system, based on their fighting styles, based on how Sean Woodson looked in his last fight. He looked amazing against the guy's primary grappler, right? But it just goes to show that he was able to defend takedowns and he was able to really manage his distance well. So I think that we can go Sean Woodson money line here and get a lot of value. Now, Charles Jourdain he has high output, right? So there is a world here where this goes to the distance and we get maybe a split decision that goes Jourdain's way because he was able to put out more, higher output with the kicks, working his jab. But man, Sean Woodson's a slick boxer, man. Yeah. He is a boxer. That's where that's the sport he came from. So if he can defend the takedowns of Charles Jourdain, I think he can take advantage of that reach, and we can get a Sean Woodson decision is probably the most likely outcome here.
I like it.
Where he's able to utilize his boxing and his reach and really take advantage of that over Charles Jourdain, spoil another Canadian fight. But the one thing that I'm scared of, Canadians went 6-0 on the last card, and we primarily bet against the Canadians in that last Canadian
It's got to
card.
swing back.
So I'm looking to buck a trend here.
It's got to
with
swing
these two
back.
fights.
They got to be
Yeah.
less obvious with the rigging on the. I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna swing back.
You got a lot of great Canadian fighters on this card that I think are gonna win.
Yeah.
But these are the two where I'm betting against Canada here. Sorry, Canada.
Yeah. No, I hear you, and I think the reach advantages, man, that's huge, and like. When you're talking about how the different possible outcomes, like, maybe you lose it if it goes to the cards, maybe Jordan gets a decision, but like we're playing line value and we're playing, probabilities here, right? If the guy's plus 170 and there's a 60+% system and we like the matchup and he's got a disadvantage and, you're playing, it's math. You're playing math here.
Right.
A lot of the times you're just betting on the line and you hit that chance where you hit that time where it wins and you get a nice plus money. Plus 170 is a size, that's a big dog, sizable dog. So
it is.
I like it.
It is, and that system is juiced way to minus money on that. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
So those will probably both be on the card.
Sweet. So Chris Curtis and Sean Woodson, look out for those two this weekend at UFC 296. And that pretty much wraps it up, man. Gave out the divisional plays, MMA, and heading on into the weekend. We'll be back probably in person next week for you viewers on YouTube. And it's going to be a fun weekend with the football, with the fighting, hoops going on. This is a really good time of year for sports betting. So enjoy it, guys, because before you know it, it's going to be just the dog days of baseball coming around the corner. So enjoy this while we're here.
The only thing that keeps me going is UFC is almost every week.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
No matter what.
We're
gonna get
you ain't going nowhere, buddy. You're here all.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right, dude.
Weekend. Thanks for watching.